Hi, I'm so glad you're here. Thought I'd just take a minute to chat with you. I have been quiet for a long time, so this is good. It's good to be here. A few years ago now, I finished writing my book. At this very moment, it is a podcast right here on this channel. You can find it in its own tidy folder called Let Me Tell You a Story. How is it a podcast? Is it not an audiobook? How come it's not a published book? Questions, questions. For imagination and mystique and intrigue, let's imagine that it basically snuck in through a back door of a very big building that nobody was checking. Imagine that door as unmarked, paint scuffed and worn and dinged up at the back of the building. One murky buzzing light fixed over it. Back kinda where the dumpsters are. Maybe. Maybe there's some ancient building supplies piled up in a little corner back there. Picture it. What the fuck is this chick talking about? Okay, let's get more specific. A few years ago now, I finished writing my book. For me, it was a huge accomplishment to write something huge, and I'm talking a substantial number of pages. The last time I had done that, I was in my early 20s, and I wrote a crazy fiction story that weighed in at just over 100 pages. And I couldn't believe that I'd had the focus to see it through from beginning to end. That was it. I was a writer. If I could write something just over 100 pages, I was doing it. I was on my way. But then, life got in the way. When I was 11 or 12 years old, my mom came home from the library one day with a book for me. Mom always picked the best books. She had a knack for it, and man, do I miss those treasures she always seemed able to find. That day she had come home with a book by Stephen King and Peter Straub. It was one of those books that I could not put down. It fired up my brain completely, and I've reread it so many times I've lost count. I guess I'm not giving Mr. Straub enough credit, but my reading path veered off with Stephen King. I started reading more of his books after that, and that was it. That was what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a writer. I wanted to be Stephen King. Well, you know what I mean. Not long after, and still a preteen, I had read a collection of King's short stories, and I was inspired, and I immediately started writing my own story on my little notepad. It was about a group of young friends set in the summertime, maybe the late 50s, very early 60s, and, oh my God, it was a total ripoff of The Body, which you may know better as the movie Stand By Me. But no worries, I only got a few pages in anyway. Because Mr. King was such an inspiration for young Karen, and because I had enjoyed many of his books, after I finished writing my own book, I was excited, and I wanted to send him a letter and say thanks. I'm big on that now. If someone does something I appreciate, I want to thank them. As well, if someone is out in the world and they look really sharp or really nice, I want to let them know. The past few years, I've decided I'm not embarrassed anymore to say nice things. Fuck it. I'm old enough now, and I can say nice stuff if I want to. So I went online, and I hunted around, and I found a potential fan mail address, and I started writing my letter. I even wrote it out by hand, because I felt like that was the most personal touch I could employ. Back in the days of friendly correspondence, the friendliest of all was the handwritten letter, and that's what I did. I didn't even save a copy for myself. I tried to keep it short, and I wrote about how inspired I had been by his books. I thanked him for being an inspiration, and I told him that after many years, I had finally written my own book. I also made sure to say there was no need to reply. I figured he most likely gets a ton of letters, and all I hoped for was that he'd get the chance to read it. I sealed up my letter, loaded up the envelope with stamps, walked over to the nearest mailbox, bid it a fond farewell, and dropped it in. A decent time later, I received a letter with my name on it. Oh my God! It was from Stephen King! A pulse went through me of pure adrenaline shock. Well, only it wasn't from Stephen King, but from the person who handles Stephen King's fan mail. And I'm going to paraphrase it, but it said something to the effect of, Stephen King gets a ton of fan mail and he had to make a choice one day. And he could either choose to read all your letters or he could choose to spend his time writing awesome books. So I think you know the choice was clear. But anyway, here's a guide on how to write books. What a frigging gift! For like a minute I was kind of crushed, but it was great. And I can't help thinking, cool, he's basically the Crimson King now himself. And you can't get to him. Don't worry if you don't get that reference. Anyway, in the end, I never could write horror novels. And this is probably because life, basically, has been fucking scary enough over the years. It's been overwhelming enough that after the death of a loved one who I had known for 30 years, and that death had been 1 year and a month after the death of another loved one, I needed to be quiet for a while. I was very busy in this downtime, this healing time, but I needed to be quiet. It's been a long haul since at least 2010, and I needed to be quiet. And it's been healing, and sometimes even peaceful, and it's been productive, and it at times has been wrenching, and at times draining, and it has been lonely at times. But it's a funny thing about walling yourself in to heal. You can get a little too uncomfortably comfortable in your cave. Because one of the things you want more than anything else after a long time of stress and turbulence and heartache is peace. But the irony is that there isn't actually total peace in shutting yourself off from the world. So, I am here. And I'm glad you are here too, because I have been quiet for a long time.